Battle through the heavens. Grand world. Chapter 279 The Elders, Thoughts. 1 month. Elder Shao pondered slightly when he heard this. Just as he was about to speak, a thin gray-robed elder suddenly stood up. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Great Elder, 1 month's time is too short. Although Guyuan and Zhu Kun's strength are extraordinary, it's impossible for them to accept everyone's challenge in 1 month's time." The Great Elder faintly glanced at the thin elder and said in a soft voice, "A month's time is already the biggest deadline. However, if they can defeat the top 10 soaring dragon ranking and occupy the heavenly peak, no one would have any objections." When the skinny old man heard this, his expression immediately turned ugly. Just as he was about to speak, Elder Shao stroked his beard and said with a light laugh, "Elder Tian, don't underestimate your disciples. Didn't you notice that their combat experience is much richer than us elders?" Elder Tian frowned slightly when he heard Elder Shao's words. Then, he nodded his head solemnly. Although he was unwilling, he had to admit that although Guyuan and the other 3 were weak, their combat experience and awareness were much richer than most of the elders. After they came out of illusory spirit realm, they have yet to make a move in the academy. Coincidentally, this time, we will organize the inner courtyard competition and reorganize the ownership of the 10 heavenly peak. After saying that, Elder Shao looked at the Great Elder at the head of the group and cupped his fists. "Great Elder, what do you think? You just have to do as you see fit. The matters of the inner courtyard will be handled by a few of your second-grade elders. I won't bother with them anymore." The Great Elder nodded and tapped the table with his finger. He pondered for a moment and said, "Regarding the reward for the Saint rank trial participant, after discussing it, send it out as soon as possible so that he can have the strength to enter the realm in Valley as soon as possible." After saying that, the Great Elder stood up and left. As he walked, his figure had already disappeared. When they saw the Great Elder leave, many of the elders turned their gazes to Elder Shao. As a second Great Elder who held authority in the academy, Elder Shao was in charge of one of the 5 Great Elders in the inner academy. As for the inner courtyard competition, they naturally needed the former to organize and plan. The number 1 soaring dragon ranking is still Mu Huyang's little sister, right? This little girl's talent is pretty good. Elder Shao reorganized his seat and pondered for a moment. Then, he smiled and said, "How about this? The inner courtyard competition will be in a month's time. During this period of time, they will announce the identity of Shaoyan's Saint rank trial participant. I think there should be a lot of people who will challenge him, and it will let him know the strength of the Yunluo Academy." All the elders nodded their heads when they heard this. At the lower part of the hall, Elder Wu suddenly stood up and said, "The power of the Saint rank trial participant will probably be greater. These fellows probably won't be afraid of the consequences. If we rashly go out, we might even mess up our mental state." Elder Shao frowned slightly when he heard this. He also understood Elder Wu's concerns. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly laughed lightly and said, "Since that's the case, let everyone in the academy know that Xiao Xuan'er and Kai Lin are Xiao Yan's girlfriends. This way, there will be many people challenging him. We will use this opportunity to let Xiao Yan let them know that the famous flower has an owner." When the elders heard this, they laughed loudly. This move could not be said to not be poisonous. It only said that Xiao Xuan'er and Kai Lin were Xiao Yan's girlfriends, and it could even arouse the blood of those young men who loved the 2 girls. In order to protect the 2 girls, Xiao Yan thought that he would also work hard to cultivate and had no choice but to quickly increase his strength. Since no one has any objections, let's do it this way. Also, bring Xiao Yan's reward to him. I would like to see how strong this guy is. ... Elder Shao's plan in the Heaven Pillar Peak was swiftly implemented by the various elders. In just a moment, all the experts within the inner academy were aware of Xiao Yan. Saint rank trial participant. The elders really said that. On top of a desolate hill, a young man with messy hair was topless, and his hands were tightly wrapped in bandages. The young man had a determined look on his face, and his eye sockets were deeply sunken. At this moment, he was sitting cross-legged, and behind him was a gigantic spirit beast that had just died. Xiao Xuan'er and Kai Lin are both his girlfriends. The young man suddenly stood up. He looked at the position of the inner academy at the end of his eyes. His eyes were surging with fury. It's just a girlfriend. Who cares if he's a Saint rank trial participant or not? He actually dares to touch Xuan'er and Kai Lin. I want to let him know what pain is. The young man suddenly stomped on the ground as he spoke. His body had already rushed forward. The air seemed to have been torn apart. It was just like a lightning bolt. His speed was shocking. In an instant, he had turned into a black spot and disappeared, leaving behind a group of stunned companions. Big Brother Bai has been concerned about Xiao Xuan'er for a long time. A Saint rank trial participant that has yet to mature and an expert in the top 10 of the Soaring Dragon ranking. There will likely be a good show to watch this time around. As they watched the young man's figure disappear from their field of vision, the few young men who were standing at the same spot all sighed with emotion. Then, their hearts were filled with anticipation as they followed him. Xiao Yan, Saint rank trial participant. On the quiet lakeside, a young man with a face as cold as ice gently raised his eyebrows. His eyes were staring at the surface of the lake in front of him. His expression was calm, and no fluctuations could be seen from his expression. When the young man who had conveyed the message saw this, he could only obediently stand where he was, not daring to leave. What a lucky fellow. I don't care about Xiao Xuan'er. I never thought that Kai Lin would also be his girlfriend. Then, after a long while, the young man finally sighed and slowly got up. The moment he got up, his aura suddenly burst out, causing the surface of the lake in front of him to explode and raise several dozen feet of waves. Just snatch it over. The young man's expression was indifferent. His icy cold eyes looked in the direction of the inner academy, carrying a stern killing intent. Captain Xiao Xuan'er and Kai Lin are actually that fellow's girlfriends. In the inner academy's punishment department, Zhuang He's face was pale as he listened to his subordinate's report. The jealousy and hatred in his eyes became even stronger. Xiao Yan's Saint rank trial participant was already sufficient to strike a blow to him. He did not expect that the two beauties that he thought of day and night also had an intimate relationship with the latter. So what? She's just a girlfriend. Zhuang He clenched his teeth tightly. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. He suddenly crushed the jade in his hand. A ferocious look flashed in his eyes. It was a long time before he said in a hoarse voice, "I am not his match." However, this fellow had actually occupied a heavenly peak the moment he arrived. This was just the right time to tell the captain. She hates evil as well as enmity. Looks like Xuan'er and Kai Lin's eyes are not bad. This fellow is actually the same as Big Brother, both of them are Saint rank trial participants. He doesn't dare to challenge Big Brother. This guy can be bullied. On top of the heavenly peak, a girl with black hair that reached her waist looked into the distance and revealed a silly smile. The girl was dressed in green, and her hand was lightly waving. The origin monarchy in the entire world seemed to be dancing for her, like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. She was slim and graceful, and her figure was very impressive. While the entire inner courtyard was shaken by the news spread by the elders, Xiao Yan was still living in the heavenly peak. Xuan'er and Kai Lin had enjoyed the happiness of being together. Xiao Yan had also temporarily put everything behind his mind and accompanied the two girls well. They told each other their experiences. It was also at this time. Elder Fang arrived with the reward from the Inner Academy's elder. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.